The morning air was sharp and biting, carrying with it the kind of chill that made people pull their jackets tighter around themselves as they hurried through the streets of downtown Chicago. The sun had barely risen, casting long shadows across the sidewalks and making the city feel like it was still waking up. Among the crowd of early risers stood Emily Parker, a woman who looked completely out of place in her casual jeans and hoodie. Her blonde hair was tucked under a beanie, and she clutched her arms tightly to keep warm. Emily wasn't used to feeling so exposed or vulnerable. Normally, she would step out of her chauffeur-driven car, wearing tailored suits and designer shoes, commanding attention wherever she went. But today was different. Today, she had left her phone on the kitchen counter and her wallet in her purse, which now sat forgotten on the passenger seat of her car. She had been running late for a meeting and hadn't realized what she'd left behind until she was already blocks away from home. Now, here she was, standing at a bus stop with no way to pay for the ride. Emily glanced at her watch and sighed. Missing this meeting wasn't an option. It was too important. Yet, asking someone for help felt almost unbearable. As one of the most successful businesswomen in the country, she was accustomed to solving problems herself, not relying on others. Still, there was nothing she could do but wait and hope someone might offer assistance. Across the street, Daniel Harper was finishing his usual morning routine. He lived in a modest apartment not far from where Emily stood, spending most mornings, sipping coffee while sketching ideas for freelance projects. Daniel wasn't rich, nor did he aspire to be. What mattered to him was creating art that resonated with people, even if it meant living paycheck to paycheck. On this particular day, he decided to walk to the nearby coffee shop instead of taking public transportation. It was colder than expected, but the fresh air helped clear his mind. As he approached the bus stop, Daniel noticed a woman standing alone, looking troubled. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other, glancing repeatedly at the bus schedule posted on the pole. Something about her demeanor caught his attention, not because she seemed wealthy or powerful, but because she appeared lost. Most people waiting for buses were either engrossed in their phones or chatting with friends. This woman, however, looked like she didn't belong. Curiosity got the better of him, and Daniel slowed his pace. "Excuse me," he said gently, stepping closer. "Are you okay?" Emily turned toward the voice, startled. She hadn't noticed anyone approaching. When she saw Daniel, a man with tousled brown hair and a friendly smile, she hesitated. Asking for help went against every instinct. She had, but pride wouldn't get her to her meeting. She stammered, unsure how to explain her predicament. Finally, she admitted, "I forgot my wallet, and I don't have cash for the bus." Daniel nodded knowingly. "Happens to everyone sooner or later," he replied, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a crumpled $5 bill, the last bit of cash he had, and held it out to her. "Here, take this. It's not much, but it should cover your fare." Emily stared at the money, then at Daniel. His expression was open and sincere, without a trace of judgment or expectation. For a moment, she considered refusing, but something in his tone made her accept the gesture. "Thank you," she said softly, taking the bill. "I'll pay you back somehow." Daniel waved off her comment. "Don't worry about it. We've all been there." With that, he gave her a quick nod and continued on his way, disappearing into the crowd before Emily could say another word. Once the bus arrived and she boarded, Emily couldn't stop thinking about the stranger who had helped her. There had been no hesitation in his actions, no ulterior motive. He simply saw someone in need and acted. It was such a small act of kindness, yet it left a profound impression on her. She found herself wondering who he was, and what kind of person could be so selfless without expecting anything in return. Meanwhile, Daniel reached the coffee shop and ordered his usual drink. As he sat down at a corner table, He thought briefly about the woman at the bus stop. She had seemed out of place, dressed casually, but carrying herself with an air of quiet confidence. He wondered why someone like her would forget something as basic as bus fare. Shrugging it off, he opened his sketchbook and began working on a new design. Little did he know, that brief encounter would change both their lives in ways neither of them could have imagined. Back at her office later that day, Emily tried to focus on her work, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the man with the warm smile. She replayed their interaction over and over in her mind, marveling at how effortlessly he had offered help. In her world, acts of kindness often came with strings attached, whether it was networking opportunities, favors owed, or attempts to curry favor. But this man had done none of those things. He had given freely, without knowing anything about her. Determined to find him, Emily called her assistant, Claire, into her office. "I need you to do something for me," she said, explaining the situation. "Can you track down the man who gave me bus fare this morning? I want to thank him properly." Claire raised an eyebrow, but didn't question her boss's request. Emily was known for being fiercely independent, so this sudden interest in a stranger was unusual. Still, she agreed to help, knowing better than to argue with Emily when she set her mind to something. Using security footage from cameras near the bus stop, Claire managed to identify Daniel, leaving the area shortly after their encounter. From there, it wasn't difficult to locate his address. When Emily learned where he lived, she felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. Part of her wanted to march straight to his door and introduce herself, but another part worried about how he might react. Would he think she was crazy for going to such lengths to find him? Or worse, would he feel uncomfortable knowing she was the CEO of a major company? Deciding to proceed carefully, Emily chose to observe Daniel from a distance before revealing her identity. Over the next few days, she visited places he frequented, a cozy coffee shop where he worked part-time, a bookstore where he browsed during weekends, and even a park bench where he sometimes sketched designs for clients. Each time she made sure their interactions were subtle, striking up conversations only when it felt natural. One afternoon, while waiting in line at the coffee shop, Emily struck up a conversation with Daniel under the guise of needing advice on design software. "I'm trying to learn Photoshop," she told him, smiling shy released. After their brief encounter at the bus stop, Emily couldn't shake the image of Daniel from her mind. His kindness had been so unexpected, so genuine, that it lingered with her long after she had settled into her high-rise office. She sat at her desk, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the bustling city below. The skyline was breathtaking, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She replayed the moment over and over, how he had approached her without hesitation, offered her money without expecting anything in return, and walked away as if it were nothing. It wasn't just the act itself that stayed with her, it was the way he carried himself. There was a quiet confidence about him, a lack of pretense that stood in stark contrast to the people she usually interacted with. Executives, investors, and even friends in her circle often came with agendas or hidden motives. But Daniel? He seemed refreshingly real. Determined to find him, Emily leaned back in her chair and pressed the intercom button on her desk phone. "Claire, can you come in for a moment?" Her assistant, Claire Bennett, appeared within seconds, notepad in hand. Emily didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I need you to help me track down someone," she said, her tone firm but calm. Claire blinked, caught off guard. "Of course. Who are we looking for?" Emily hesitated for a split second before explaining, "This morning I was at a bus stop downtown. I forgot my wallet, and a man gave me cash for the bus fare. I want to find him." Claire's pen hovered above her notepad as she processed the request. "You want to find someone who gave you bus money?" she asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. It wasn't every day that Emily Parker, one of the most powerful women in the tech industry, went out of her way to locate a stranger. "Yes," Emily replied, her expression unwavering. "He didn't ask for anything in return, and I'd like to thank him properly." Claire nodded slowly, understanding the weight of the situation. "Okay, do you remember anything specific about him? What he looked like? Where exactly this happened?" Emily described Daniel as best she could: his tousled brown hair, his casual demeanor, and the crumpled $5 bill he had handed her. She also mentioned the location of the bus stop. With that information, Claire got to work. Tracking someone down based on such vague details would normally be impossible, but Emily had resources most people could only dream of. Security cameras were everywhere in Chicago, and with a few calls, Claire gained access to footage from the area. It didn't take long to identify Daniel leaving the scene shortly after Emily boarded the bus. From there, they traced his route to a modest apartment building on the outskirts of the city. Claire double-checked the address and confirmed it matched public records for a man named Daniel Harper. When she presented the findings to Emily, the CEO felt a mix of relief and excitement. Now that she knew where to find him, the next step was figuring out how to approach him. Emily decided against revealing her identity right away. She wanted to learn more about Daniel first, to understand what kind of person he was beyond that single act of kindness. Over the next few days, she began visiting places he frequented. The first stop was a small coffee shop where Daniel worked part-time. Emily ordered a latte and found a seat near the counter, watching him as he served customers with a friendly smile. He moved with ease, chatting briefly with regulars and offering recommendations for drinks. There was an authenticity to the way he interacted with people that Emily admired. The following day, she visited a bookstore where Daniel often browsed during his free time. She spotted him flipping through the pages of a graphic design magazine, completely absorbed in the content. Emily wandered over to the same section, pretending to browse while sneaking glances at him. Eventually, she struck up a conversation. "Are you into graphic design?" she asked casually. Daniel looked up, surprised by the question. "Yeah, I do freelance work," he replied, closing the magazine. "Do you know much about it?" "Not really," Emily admitted with a sheepish smile. "But I'm trying to learn Photoshop. Any tips for a beginner?" Daniel chuckled, clearly amused by her honesty. "Well, start with the basics. Don't overwhelm yourself with all the tools at once. Focus on layers. That's where the magic happens." They talked for a few minutes, and Emily found herself genuinely enjoying the exchange. Daniel was patient and encouraging, sharing insights without making her feel foolish for asking beginner-level questions. By the time they parted ways, Emily felt like she had glimpsed another side of him, a passionate artist who loved teaching others. Her curiosity deepened when she discovered that Daniel spent his weekends sketching in a nearby park. One Saturday morning, Emily grabbed a cup of coffee and headed to the park, spotting him almost immediately. He was sitting on a bench, sketchbook in hand, drawing the fountain in the distance. She hesitated for a moment before walking over. "Mind if I join you?" she asked, gesturing to the empty space beside him. Daniel glanced up, startled but not unwelcoming. "Sure, go ahead." Emily sat down, sipping her coffee as she watched him work. His sketches were detailed and expressive, capturing the essence of the scene in front of them. "You're really talented," she said after a while. "Thanks," Daniel replied, shrugging modestly. "It's just a hobby, mostly. Helps me unwind." Their conversation flowed naturally, touching on topics ranging practically anything. They discussed art, technology, and even their favorite books. Emily was struck by how easy it was to talk to him. He listened attentively, asked thoughtful questions, and never tried to dominate the conversation. It was refreshing compared to The formal, often superficial interactions she was used to in her professional life. As the weeks passed, Emily continued to weave herself into Daniel's routine, always careful not to overstep or make her presence seem suspicious. Each interaction brought her closer to understanding the man behind the kindness. She learned that he valued creativity and storytelling, that he dreamed of one day opening his own design studio, and that he cherished the freedom of working for himself, even if it meant financial instability. For his part, Daniel found himself intrigued by Emily. She was intelligent, curious, and surprisingly down to earth for someone who seemed so put together. He noticed the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her own work, though she never revealed specifics. She was mysterious in a way that made him want to know more, yet she never pushed boundaries or demanded attention. Their growing connection felt natural, unforced, and deeply rewarding. Unbeknownst to Daniel, Emily was wrestling with a dilemma. She knew she couldn't keep hiding who she was forever, but the thought of telling him terrified her. Would he see her differently once he learned the truth? Would their budding friendship survive the revelation that she was a millionaire CEO? These questions weighed heavily on her mind, but she resolved to be honest sooner rather than later. After all, their connection was built on trust, and trust required transparency. One evening, as she lay in bed replaying their conversations in her head, Emily realized something important. It wasn't just gratitude that drew her to Daniel. It was admiration. He lived simply, prioritizing passion and integrity over wealth and status. In a world obsessed with appearances, he stood out as someone truly authentic. And for the first time in years, Emily felt like she could be herself around him. No titles, no expectations, no masks. The realization filled her with both hope and determination. Whatever happened next, she knew one thing for certain. Daniel Harper had changed her perspective in ways she hadn't anticipated. Now, it was up to her to decide whether to take the next step and risk everything or let the moment slip away. Emily's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts as she prepared to meet Daniel again. She had spent days rehearsing what she would say, how she would explain who she really was, and how she hoped he wouldn't see her differently afterward. The truth was, she cared about his opinion more than she cared to admit. For the first time in years, Emily felt like she wasn't just the CEO or the millionaire. Around Daniel, she was simply Emily, a person trying to connect with another person. That afternoon, Emily decided to visit the park where Daniel often sketched. It was a crisp fall day, the kind where the air smelled faintly of leaves and the sunlight filtered through the trees in golden streaks. She spotted him sitting on his usual bench near the fountain, his sketchbook resting on his lap. He looked peaceful, completely absorbed in his work. Emily hesitated for a moment before walking over. "Hey," she said softly, not wanting to startle him. Daniel glanced up, his face breaking into a warm smile when he saw her. "Hey, Emily, I was wondering if you'd show up today." "You were?" she asked, surprised. "Yeah, you've been coming around a lot lately. I figured you might stop by." He gestured to the space beside him. "Want to sit?" Emily nodded and took a seat, clutching her coffee cup tightly. Her heart was racing, but she forced herself to stay calm. They sat in silence for a while, watching the fountain spray water into the air. Finally, Daniel broke the quiet. "So, what brings you here today? More questions about Photoshop?" Emily chuckled nervously. "Actually, no. Well, maybe later. But I wanted to talk to you about something else." Daniel set his pencil down and turned to look at her. "Okay, what's up?" She took a deep breath, searching for the right words. "I owe you an explanation," she began. "And I want to be honest with you because you deserve that." Daniel tilted his head, confusion flickering across his face. "An explanation? About what?" Emily hesitated, her fingers tightening around her coffee cup. "Do you remember that morning at the bus stop? The one where you gave me money for the bus?" "Of course," Daniel replied with a shrug. "It was nothing, just trying to help out." "It wasn't nothing to me," Emily said firmly. "You didn't know me, and you still went out of your way to help. That meant a lot to me." Daniel smiled softly. "I'm glad it helped. But seriously, it was just $5. Emily shook her head. "It was more than that. It made me realize something about myself, about how disconnected I've become from, well, real life. People like you don't come along every day. People like me?" Daniel repeated, raising an eyebrow. "What does that even mean?" Emily let out a small laugh. "It means people who are kind and genuine and don't expect anything in return. You didn't care who I was or what I could do for you. You just saw someone in need and acted." Daniel shifted uncomfortably, clearly unsure how to respond. "I don't know, Emily. That just seems like common sense." "To some people, maybe," Emily agreed, "but not everyone thinks that way. Trust me, I know." She paused, gathering her courage. "The thing is, I haven't been entirely upfront with you." Now Daniel looked genuinely puzzled. "What do you mean?" Emily exhaled slowly, bracing herself for his reaction. "My name isn't just Emily Parker. I'm Emily Parker, the founder and CEO of Innovatech." For a moment, Daniel stared at her blankly, as if processing what she had just said. Then his eyes widened in recognition. "Wait, the tech company? The one that's all over the news?" Emily nodded, feeling a mix of relief and anxiety wash over her. "Yes, that's me." Daniel blinked several times, clearly struggling too. Reconcile the woman sitting next to him with the powerful businesswoman he'd heard about. "Wow, okay, I wasn't expecting that." "I know," Emily said quickly, "and I'm sorry for not telling you sooner. I didn't want you to treat me differently or think I was using you or something." "No, it's fine," Daniel assured her, though there was a hint of uncertainty in his voice. I guess I didn't see it coming." Emily leaned forward, her expression earnest. "I understand if this changes things between us. I wouldn't blame you if you needed time to process everything. But I want you to know that I value our friendship, and I hope we can keep building on it." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, looking thoughtful. "Honestly, I don't know what to say. You're definitely not what I expected when I gave you that $5. Emily smiled faintly. "Believe me, neither was I." They sat in silence for a few minutes, the weight of the revelation hanging between them. Finally, Daniel spoke. "Look, Emily, I'm not going to lie. It's a lot to take in. But I also don't think it changes who you are as a person. You're still the same woman I've been talking to these past few weeks, right?" Relief flooded through Emily. "Exactly. And I want to keep being that person with you." Daniel nodded slowly. "Okay, let's just take it slow and see where this goes. No pressure." "Deal," Emily said, smiling gratefully. Over the next few days, their relationship continued to evolve. Now that Daniel knew the truth, Emily felt freer to share parts of her life she had kept hidden before. She invited him to visit her office, showing him the sleek, modern workspace where her team brainstormed ideas and developed cutting-edge technology. Daniel marveled at the scale of her operation, admitting he had never imagined stepping foot inside such a prestigious company. In return, Daniel introduced Emily to his world. He showed her his favorite spots in the city, the quiet bookstore tucked away on a side street, the cozy diner where he grabbed lunch when he was short on cash, and the art gallery where he dreamed of displaying his work someday. Each outing brought them closer together, revealing new layers of their personalities. One evening, as they strolled through the park after dinner, Daniel stopped suddenly and turned to face her. "You know, I've been thinking," he said, his tone serious. Why did you go to so much trouble to find me? I mean, it's not like I did anything extraordinary. Emily met his gaze, her expression softening. Because you reminded me of something I'd forgotten, that kindness doesn't have to come with strings attached. In my world, people usually help each other because they want something in return. But you gave without expecting anything. That's rare, Daniel. And I wanted to thank you not just with words, but by getting to know you better. Daniel looked touched by her answer. Well, I'm glad you did. Honestly, meeting you has been unexpected, but in a good way. There, connection deepened with each passing day, built on mutual respect and admiration. Emily admired Daniel's creativity and humility, while Daniel appreciated Emily's intelligence and determination. Despite their vastly different backgrounds, they found common ground in their shared values and love for storytelling. However, challenges loomed on the horizon. As word spread about Emily's growing closeness to Daniel, whispers began circulating among her colleagues and acquaintances. Some questioned his intentions, assuming he was only interested in her wealth. Others criticized Emily for associating with someone outside her social circle. The media picked up on the story, speculating wildly about their relationship and painting Daniel as a gold-digger. When Emily read the headlines, she felt a surge of anger. How dare they judge him without knowing him? She confronted her public relations team, insisting they issue a statement refuting the claims. Meanwhile, Daniel tried to brush off the negativity, focusing instead on the bond he shared with Emily. Still, the scrutiny took its toll, forcing them to confront difficult questions about their future. One night, as they sat together on Daniel's apartment balcony, Emily broached the subject. "Do you ever feel like this is too much?" she asked quietly. "All the attention, the rumors. It must be overwhelming." The media storm surrounding Emily and Daniel grew louder with each passing day. Headlines screamed about the mysterious man in Emily Parker's life, speculating endlessly about his motives. Some articles painted him as a cunning opportunist, while others dismissed him as unworthy of someone like Emily. The scrutiny seeped into every corner of their lives, making it hard to ignore. Emily tried her best to shield Daniel from the chaos. She issued statements through her PR team, emphasizing that their relationship was genuine and asking the public to respect their privacy. But no matter how many times she defended him, the rumors persisted. It was exhausting for both of them. One evening, after another long day of dealing with reporters and social media backlash, Emily arrived at Daniel's apartment. She found him sitting on the couch, staring at his phone with a troubled expression. When he heard her enter, he looked up and forced a smile. "Hey," he said, though his voice lacked its usual warmth. "Hey," Emily replied, closing the door behind her. She walked over and sat beside him, noticing the tension in his posture. "What's going on?" Daniel hesitated before handing her his phone. On the screen was an article titled, "Is Daniel Harper using Emily Parker for fame?" The words stung, even though Emily had seen similar accusations countless times before. She set the phone down gently and turned to face him. "Don't let this get to you," she said firmly. "They don't know anything about us or you." "That's just it," Daniel muttered, running a hand through his hair. "They're right, aren't they? I mean, look at the situation. A guy like me doesn't usually end up with someone like you. People are going to assume the worst." Emily frowned, reaching out to take his hand. "That's not true, Daniel. You didn't ask for any of this. You helped me because you're a good person. That's why I wanted to get to know you, because of who you are, not because of what anyone else thinks." "I know that," Daniel admitted, "but it's hard not to feel out of place. Your world is so different from mine. Sometimes I wonder if I'm holding you back or making things harder for you." Emily squeezed his hand tightly. "You're not holding me back. If anything, You're reminding me of what really matters. My company, my money, they're just tools. They don't define me. What defines me is how I treat people and how I feel about them." She paused, her voice softening. "And I care about you, Daniel, more than I thought I could care about anyone." Daniel looked at her, his eyes searching hers for reassurance. "Do you ever worry that we're too different? That maybe we shouldn't be together because of all the complications?" "Of course I worry," Emily admitted. "But relationships aren't supposed to be easy. They're supposed to challenge us, to make us better versions of ourselves. And being with you has already changed me in ways I never expected." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of their conversation hung in the air, mingling with the sounds of the city outside. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "Okay," he said quietly. "Let's keep going. Together. We'll figure it out as we go." Emily smiled, relief washing over her. "Together," she echoed. Despite their resolve, the challenges didn't disappear overnight. The media continued to hound them, and Daniel struggled with moments of self-doubt. He worried that he couldn't measure up to Emily's elite circle, no matter how supportive she was. His friends encouraged him to stay true to himself, reminding him that love shouldn't depend on material wealth. Still, the pressure weighed heavily on both of them, testing the strength of their relationship in an effort to prove that their bond was real. Emily invited Daniel to attend a charity gala as her date. It was one of the most prestigious events of the year, attended by Chicago's wealthiest and most influential figures. Daniel hesitated when she first asked, feeling completely out of his element. "Are you sure about this?" he said nervously. "I don't exactly fit in with your crowd." "You don't have to fit in," Emily replied. "You just have to be yourself. That's all I want." With some encouragement, Daniel agreed to go. On the night of the gala, Emily picked him up in a sleek black car. When he stepped out wearing a tailored suit she had arranged for him, she couldn't help but smile. "You clean up pretty well," she teased. Daniel laughed, trying to shake off his nerves. "Let's hope I don't embarrass myself in front of your fancy friends." Inside the grand ballroom, Daniel felt overwhelmed by the opulence. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above, and elegantly dressed guests mingled beneath them. Servers glided through the crowd carrying trays of champagne, and a live orchestra played soft music in the background. For a moment, Daniel wondered if he had made a mistake coming here, but Emily stayed by his side the entire evening, introducing him to colleagues and acquaintances with pride. She spoke warmly about his creativity and passion for art, making sure everyone understood how special he was to her. Slowly, Daniel began to relax. He realized that these people weren't so different from him. They laughed, they told stories. They cared about causes close to their hearts. By the end of the night, he even found himself enjoying conversations with some of Emily's peers as they danced under the shimmering lights. Daniel leaned in and whispered, "Thank you for bringing me here. I was scared at first, but I think I needed this." Emily smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. "I'm glad you came. You belong here with me." The gala marked a turning point in their relationship. While the media attention didn't vanish entirely, it became less intense over time. People began to see that Daniel wasn't using Emily. He genuinely cared for her, just as she cared for him. Their differences, once a source of tension, became something they celebrated. Emily admired Daniel's humility and creativity, while Daniel appreciated Emily's intelligence and drive. Together, they balanced each other in ways neither had anticipated. Inspired by Daniel's artistic vision, Emily proposed a new initiative within her company, a program designed to support struggling artists and entrepreneurs. She envisioned a platform where talented individuals could showcase their work and receive funding to bring their ideas to life. Daniel eagerly joined the project, contributing his insights and helping shape its direction. Working side by side brought them even closer. They spent hours brainstorming ideas, visiting galleries, and meeting with potential partners. The experience deepened their connection, reinforcing the belief that their partnership was about more than just romance. It was about creating something meaningful together. One afternoon, as they reviewed designs for the program's logo, Daniel glanced at Emily and grinned. "You know, I never imagined my life would turn out like this," he said. "A few months ago, I was just a guy giving bus fare to a stranger. Now, I'm working with one of the most successful women in the country." Emily laughed, shaking her head. "And I never imagined that stranger would change my life the way you have. Funny how things work out, isn't it?" Daniel nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Yeah, funny and amazing." As they continued planning the initiative, Emily and Daniel knew they still had obstacles ahead. Balancing their vastly different worlds wouldn't always be easy, but they faced those challenges with confidence, knowing they had built a relationship on trust, admiration, and a shared commitment to making a difference. Their journey was far from over, but one thing was certain: whatever came next, they would face it together. The initiative Emily and Daniel had been working on finally came to life. It was called Creative Horizons, a program designed to support artists, designers, and entrepreneurs who lacked the resources to bring their ideas to fruition. Launch event took place in a spacious art gallery downtown, filled with vibrant paintings, sculptures, and interactive installations created by the first group of recipients. The room buzzed with excitement as guests mingled, congratulating Emily and Daniel on their vision. For Daniel, the night felt surreal. He stood near the entrance, watching people admire the artwork and hearing their praise for the program. A few months ago, he had been sketching alone in a park, unsure if anyone would ever see his work. Now, he was standing beside one of the most influential women in the tech industry, helping lead a project that could change lives, including his own. Emily noticed him lingering near the wall and walked over. "You look like you're a million miles away," she said with a smile. Daniel chuckled, shaking his head. "I'm just trying to take it all in. This is incredible. I never thought something like this could happen because of me." "It's happening because of both of us," Emily corrected him gently. "Your creativity inspired this whole thing. Don't forget that." Daniel glanced around the room, his eyes landing on a young woman explaining her photography project to a small crowd. Her passion was evident, and it reminded him of himself not too long ago. "I guess it's kind of cool to think we're giving people a chance to shine," he admitted. "But honestly, I still feel like I don't belong here sometimes." Emily placed a hand on his arm, her touch steady and reassuring. "You belong wherever you choose to be, Daniel. And right now, you're exactly where you should be." Her words warmed him, but they also stirred up old doubts. Despite their progress, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that their worlds were still fundamentally different. Emily moved effortlessly among CEOs, investors, and celebrities, while he struggled to keep up with the jargon and expectations of high society. He worried that no matter how hard he tried, he would always feel like an outsider in her world. Later that evening, as the crowd began to thin out, Daniel pulled Emily aside. "Can we talk for a minute?" he asked quietly. "Of course," Emily replied, sensing the seriousness in his tone. They stepped onto a balcony overlooking the city skyline, the lights twinkling like stars below. "What's on your mind?" Emily asked, leaning against the railing. Daniel hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I've been thinking about us and about everything that's happened since we met. You've done so much for me, Emily, more than I ever expected. But sometimes I wonder, am I enough for you? Am I holding you back from being who you're supposed to be?" Emily stared at him, stunned. Where is this coming from? You're not holding me back, Daniel. You're pushing me forward. You make me want to be better to do better. But what if I can't keep up? Daniel pressed. What if I can't live up to the person everyone expects you to be with? I don't have your success or your connections. I'm just me. Emily stepped closer, her expression fierce yet tender. That's exactly why I love you. You're not trying to compete with anyone or prove something to the world. You're authentic, Daniel. You remind me of what truly matters. Success isn't measured by money or titles. It's measured by how we treat others and how we live our lives. And you've taught me that? Her words struck a chord deep within him. For so long, he had doubted whether he deserved someone like Emily, whether he could navigate the complexities of her world. But hearing her say those things aloud made him realize something important. She didn't expect him to change. She loved him for who he was. I'm sorry, Daniel said softly. I guess I let my insecurities get the best of me. It's okay, Emily assured him. We all have moments like that. Just promise me one thing. What's that? That you'll stop comparing yourself to other people, including me. We're a team, Daniel. Whatever challenges come our way, we'll face them together. Daniel nodded, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. Together, he repeated, smiling. In the weeks that followed, Emily and Daniel threw themselves into making Creative Horizons a success. They hosted workshops, organized networking events, and provided funding for dozens of aspiring creators. Word spread quickly, and soon applications poured in from across the country. The program became a beacon of hope for those who had once felt overlooked or undervalued. Through it all, Daniel grew more confident in his role. He realized that he didn't need to conform to anyone else's standards. He could carve out his own path while supporting Emily's ambitions. Their partnership flourished, blending their strengths and passions in ways neither had anticipated. One afternoon, as they reviewed feedback from the latest batch of participants, Emily turned to Daniel with a thoughtful expression. Do you remember when we first met? She asked. How could I forget? Daniel replied, grinning. You needed bus fare, and I happened to have $5. Emily laughed, shaking her head. It's funny, isn't it? That moment changed everything for both of us. It sure did, Daniel agreed. And now look at us, running a program that's helping people chase their dreams. Who would have thought? Emily smiled, her gaze softening. I think we both needed each other more than we realized. You showed me the importance of kindness and staying grounded. And maybe I helped you see that your talents are worth sharing with the world. You definitely did, Daniel said sincerely. And I wouldn't trade this for anything. As they sat there, surrounded by sketches, proposals, and notes from grateful participants, Emily and Daniel knew they had created something extraordinary. Their journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth every challenge. Together, they had proven that love and collaboration could transcend differences and inspire greatness. Still, they weren't naive. They knew there would be more hurdles ahead. Balancing their personal and professional lives wouldn't always be smooth, and the media scrutiny might resurface at any time. But they faced the future with optimism, knowing they had built a foundation rooted in trust, mutual respect, and shared purpose. That evening, as they left the office hand in hand, Daniel stopped suddenly and turned to Emily. Do you ever think about where we'll be in 5 years? 10 years? Emily tilted her head, considering the question. I don't know exactly, she admitted. But I do know one thing. Wherever we are, I want us to keep doing what we're doing now. Helping others, growing together, and reminding ourselves why we started this journey in the first place. Daniel smiled, squeezing her hand. Deal. And with that, they continued walking, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead together. Months turned into years. And Emily and Daniel's lives became a tapestry woven with shared dreams, challenges, and triumphs. Creative Horizons had grown beyond their wildest expectations, becoming a national initiative that inspired countless artists, designers, and entrepreneurs. What started as a small program in Chicago expanded to cities across the country, offering grants, mentorship, and platforms for underrepresented voices to shine. The project wasn't just a reflection of their talents, it was a testament to their partnership. Daniel had found his place in the world. No longer the man sketching alone in the park. He now stood confidently at gallery openings, workshops, and conferences, sharing his story and encouraging others to pursue their passions. His freelance design work flourished, thanks in part to the exposure he gained through Creative Horizons. But more importantly, he discovered a sense of purpose. Helping others unlock their potential gave him a fulfillment he had never experienced before. Emily, too, had changed. She remained the driven CEO who commanded boardrooms and made headlines, but she carried herself differently now. Her interactions were warmer, her decisions more thoughtful. Working alongside Daniel had reminded her of the human side of success, the importance of empathy, humility, and giving back. Together, they balanced each other perfectly, creating a dynamic that strengthened every aspect of their lives. One crisp autumn morning, Emily woke up early, unable to shake the flutter of excitement in her chest. Today was a big day, the unveiling of Creative Horizons' flagship community center in downtown Chicago. The building itself was a masterpiece, designed by local architects and funded entirely through donations and partnerships. It housed art studios, tech labs, classrooms, and even a small theater for performances. For Emily and Daniel, it represented everything they had worked toward, a space where creativity could thrive without limits. As they arrived at the site, hand in hand, they were greeted by a crowd of eager faces, artists, students, families, and supporters who had come to celebrate the occasion. A ribbon stretched across the entrance, waiting to be cut. Reporters snapped photos, and volunteers handed out flyers detailing the center's programs. The energy was electric, buzzing with anticipation. Standing beside Daniel, Emily felt a swell of pride. "This is it," she said softly. "Everything we dreamed of." Daniel nodded, his eyes scanning the crowd. "It's amazing, isn't it? To think we've helped create something like this." Before they could say more, a young girl approached them, clutching a drawing pad tightly to her chest. She looked about 10 years old, her wide eyes filled with admiration. "Are you Emily Parker?" she asked shyly. "I am," Emily replied, kneeling down to meet her gaze. "And who are you?" "My name's Lily," the girl said, holding out her drawing pad. "I wanted to show you my pictures. I drew them for Creative Horizons." Emily flipped through the pages, marveling at the vibrant colors and imaginative scenes. "These are incredible, Lily. You're so talented." Lily beamed, glancing at Daniel. "Did you help make this place?" Daniel crouched beside her, smiling warmly. "We both did, and we're really glad you're here today." "Thank you," Lily whispered, hugging her drawing pad close. "I'm going to keep practicing, just like you said." Watching the exchange, Emily felt tears prick her eyes. Moments like these, the ones that reminded her why they had started this journey, were priceless. They weren't just building careers or reputations. They were making a difference. After the ceremony, which included speeches, applause, and a standing ovation, Emily and Daniel slipped away to a quiet corner of the center. The noise of the crowd faded into the background as they leaned against a wall, catching their breath. "You know," Daniel began, his voice low, "when I gave you that $5 at the bus stop, I never imagined it would lead to all this." Emily laughed, shaking her head. "Neither did I. I thought I was just meeting a kind stranger." Instead, I found someone who changed my life. Daniel raised an eyebrow, teasing. Changed your life, huh? That sounds pretty dramatic. It is dramatic, Emily insisted, nudging him playfully. You showed me what it means to live authentically, to care about people and ideas that matter. Before you, I was so focused on climbing the ladder that I forgot why I started climbing in the first place. And now? Daniel prompted. And now, Emily continued, her tone softening, I realized that success isn't about how much money you make or how many awards you win. It's about the impact you have on others and the connections you build along the way. Daniel smiled, reaching for her hand. Well, I guess we've done pretty well then, haven't we? We have, Emily agreed, squeezing his fingers. But there's still so much more we can do. Their conversation shifted to future plans expanding Creative Horizons internationally, partnering with schools to introduce art and technology programs, and even mentoring young entrepreneurs. Directly. As always, their ideas flowed seamlessly, blending ambition with compassion. They dreamed not just for themselves, but for everyone whose lives they touched. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Emily and Daniel took a walk along the lakefront. The city lights sparkled behind them, reflecting off the water. It was peaceful, a rare moment of calm amidst the whirlwind of their busy lives. I've been thinking, Emily said suddenly, breaking the silence. About what? Daniel asked. Us, she replied, turning to face him. Our story. How it all began with such a simple act of kindness, and how far we've come since then. Daniel nodded, understanding the weight of her words. It's been quite a ride, hasn't it? It has, Emily agreed, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But I want to ask you something. Daniel's expression grew serious. What is it? Emily hesitated, searching his eyes. Then, taking a deep breath, she spoke. Do you ever wonder if we should take the next step? Make things official, I mean. A slow smile spread across Daniel's face. Are you asking me to marry you? Emily laughed nervously, though her cheeks flushed with color. Maybe. Is that okay? Okay? Daniel echoed, pulling her into his arms. It's perfect. Of course I'll marry you, Emily. Relief and joy flooded through her as she hugged him tightly. Really? You're sure? Absolutely, Daniel said, kissing her forehead. Because no matter what happens, I know we'll face it together, just like we always have. They stood there for a long time, wrapped in each other's embrace, watching the waves lap gently against the shore. In that moment, surrounded by the beauty of the city and the promise of their future, they knew they had built something extraordinary. Their love had started with a single act of kindness, a gesture so small yet so profound, and had blossomed into a partnership that defied odds and expectations. In the months that followed, Emily and Daniel planned their wedding with the same passion and dedication they brought to Creative Horizons. It was intimate yet meaningful, attended by family, friends, and the countless people whose lives they had impacted. As they exchanged vows beneath a canopy of twinkling lights, their commitment to each other and to the world around them was undeniable. Years later, when people asked them how they had managed to bridge such different worlds, Emily and Daniel would smile knowingly. It's not about where you come from, Emily would say. It's about who you choose to be and who you choose to stand beside. And Daniel would add, sometimes all it takes is one moment of kindness to change everything. Their story became a reminder that love knows no boundaries, that authenticity matters more than appearances, and that the smallest gestures can lead to the greatest adventures. Together, Emily and Daniel proved that when two hearts align, anything is possible.